What is your message directly to them after the years that you have been off the field? What is your message to NFL teams?
That I can help make you a better team. I can help you win games. To the teams that have questions, more than anything, I would say, I'd love to come in for a workout. I'd love to sit down with you and have that conversation.
I've been meaning to make a video on this for a few weeks now. Unfortunately, every single time I wanted to make a video on this, it got pushed back further and further, primarily because of how freaking crazy free agency has been. Thankfully, things have slowed down a little bit and I could finally address Colin Kaepernick's comeback attempt. Now, before we get to the content, we're giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I created a Twitch account if you want to just come there and just hang out with me. Twitch.tv/TF Mikerophone is the account. Once I get to 1,000 followers, I'll probably launch my first stream. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! I am so happy that events are finally back, and in order to really treat myself, I decided to purchase a ticket to Excision, who's performing in Los Angeles in June. Now, I was trying to figure out what's the best platform to find a cheap ticket to Excision, and the answer to that is without a doubt SeatGeek, which is today's video sponsor. If you've never heard of SeatGeek, they are a ticketing app that makes purchasing tickets so simple. I have the app on my phone, and I could easily just pull it up at any point and just buy tickets to Excision right here. And the best part of this is I have a code to hook you guys up with even cheaper tickets. When you use my promo code Mikerophone, you'll get $20 off of your purchase on SeatGeek. That's $20 off of your purchase when you use promo code Mikerophone, and thank you SeatGeek for today's sponsorship. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? This video is going to get demonetized. It's a controversial issue, primarily because Colin Kaepernick does dive into social reform in a little bit more of a political sphere. So this video is going to get demonetized. If you could leave a like to counteract the fact that it's going to get demonetized, I'd really appreciate that. And let's dive into this. A few weeks ago, Colin Kaepernick took headlines when he said that he is going to attempt to come back to the NFL. Now, for those of you guys that don't know the story of Colin Kaepernick, I'll give you a brief synopsis. So if you don't know who Colin Kaepernick is, he was the face of the San Francisco 49ers offense during the early 2010s. To summarize this and not really go too much in depth, pretty much he was drafted to captain Jim Harbaugh's 49ers and was absolutely dominant when he was utilized in conjunction with Frank Gore on the offense and that remarkable offensive line. The San Francisco 49ers employed one of the most old school philosophies, have a very dominant defense and supplement that dominant defense with a powerful run first offense. And when you have a scrambling QB that's 6'4" and move the way that Colin Kaepernick was able to, then that usually was a recipe for success. And it was. The San Francisco 49ers made it to 3 straight NFC championships and made it to a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they never won the Lombardi. And ultimately, that's apparently why Jim Harbaugh didn't stick around. Once Jim Harbaugh departed from the San Francisco 49ers, that's when things started to slow down for Colin Kaepernick. You see, when you have a really good team around Colin and all he really needed to do was run the ball and just run Greg Roman's offense, with of course the occasional pass that he'd have to make, then that was a recipe for success. Once he was tasked with being the face of the San Francisco 49ers and a franchise QB, that's when you can make the argument that he started to slow down. If you look at basic statistics, this is all backed up. I mean, if you look throughout his entire career, he was a 59.8% passer. He threw 72 touchdowns to 30 interceptions, but he wasn't necessarily known for his ability as a pure pocket passer. This was during a time where scrambling QBs were really starting to dominate in the NFL. I guess a bunch of QBs saw Michael Vick growing up, and then you had QBs like Colin Kaepernick, Robert Griffin III, and Cam Newton come into the league, and all of a sudden there was kind of like a NFL offensive renaissance, and Colin Kaepernick benefited from that. If you take a look at his rushing statistics, you could just tell that he was an absolutely masterful scrambling QB, and he had a lot of success with the 49ers. It was just once the 49ers went into a rebuild, that's when things started to slow down for Colin Kaepernick. And unfortunately for Colin Kaepernick, I think the timing of what he wanted to do was a little bit off. Just saying, from a pure leverage standpoint, 2016 was his final season in the NFL. That's the season where he decided to begin kneeling for the national anthem, and that's when the NFL condemned the fact that he was kneeling for the national anthem, which is absolutely hysterical when you consider the fact that the NFL is now launching these social awareness initiatives to end systematic racism. Now, I'm not saying systematic racism is funny. I just think it's kind of ironic that Colin Kaepernick was kind of blackballed from the NFL for kneeling for the national anthem to make a stand for systematic racism, and then he was condemned for it, and now you have the NFL who is starting to lean towards that direction, probably because the NFL doesn't want to generate negative publicity for themselves because they still have yet to apologize to Kaepernick. Now, here's the interesting part. Colin Kaepernick understands his leverage here, and as a result, it looks like he's trying to come back to the NFL. He had this to say in an interview.
Do you think you could still play NFL football today?
Oh, absolutely. We still get out there, sling it. Really getting out here today for the exhibition was to be able to show that I can do that. It was one of the questions that my agent kept getting. Well, it's been 5 years. Can he still play? So we want to make sure that we come out, we show everyone I can still play, still throw it, and really just looking for an opportunity for a door to open, to have that be a pathway to be able to get back in there, get a starting job, and lead a team to a championship.
So here's the thing, and let's break this down. Colin Kaepernick is trying to come back to the NFL. There's teams that are interested. I mean, Pete Carroll a couple of years ago said that Colin Kaepernick would without a doubt be able to make it in today's NFL. I personally think that Colin Kaepernick could be at least a backup in today's NFL, and he also understands that. At the same time, you have to understand that Colin Kaepernick did at one point liken the NFL draft to slavery.
What's being established is a power dynamic. No boundary respected. No dignity left intact. Look at this here. Come on, who wants this?
He was involved in lawsuits with the NFL, and he agreed to an undisclosed settlement behind closed doors, which we still don't know the sum. So ultimately, this entire situation is like slashing your ex-girlfriend's tires and then trying to get back together with them. And that's probably the best analogy that I could give you. Now, I think this is really adorable. Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, allowed Colin Kaepernick to throw during halftime at a spring game this past weekend. Kaepernick, at that point, took the opportunity to say that he can help any team win, and he understands that he'll probably just be a backup, which is very realistic. But I think this entire situation is very comical, mainly because I think Kaepernick knows what he's doing. Does Colin Kaepernick have the skill to be a backup in today's NFL? Without a doubt. I mean, I think he's better than like Jacoby Brissett, maybe. You could definitely say that he's a better QB than Andy Dalton. Maybe he's not, but at the same time, I do think at the very least he should be on the bench for a NFL team. I just feel like he's really burned bridges with the NFL, and now he's seeing what the NFL is trying to do with their social awareness initiative. This is kind of his way of testing the NFL to see what happens. Ultimately, do I think he's going to get an opportunity to come back to the league? I don't think so, but I hope he does. I mean, if Tim Tebow had the opportunity to come back at the age of 34 and try out as a tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars, then I have no doubt in my mind that Colin Kaepernick deserves an opportunity to come back and at least be the mentor to a young QB. For example, the Seattle Seahawks, you have Drew Lock starting at your QB position. I feel like without a doubt, Colin Kaepernick could at least back him up or serve as a mentor to Drew Lock. You look at the Atlanta Falcons, and they just got Marcus Mariota at their quarterback position. They're currently in the midst of a rebuild. Having another scrambling QB like Colin Kaepernick backing up Marcus Mariota, at least in terms of football, makes a lot of sense. The issue is it's a very polarizing subject, and it's one that is very ironic. I mean, this situation kind of reminds me of when Kyrie Irving in the NBA was allowed to sit courtside for basketball games without a mask, but he wasn't allowed to play in said games just because he wasn't vaccinated. It's one of those things where it seems like, at least in my opinion, Colin Kaepernick might be trying to test the NFL to see how they're going to respond in this situation. Needless to say, I don't know if any owner would be willing to take that risk on bringing Colin Kaepernick in. I do believe he deserves a job, but I feel like when you've burned bridges the way he did, chances are teams won't want to take a chance on you. At the same time, Antonio Brown has had 3 chances to make it with a NFL team ever since getting traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if he's had 3 chances and he's done way worse stuff off the field, which I don't want to get into, then I believe Colin Kaepernick does deserve another chance, no matter where you stand on the political spectrum. Now, do I think he's a remarkable player? I mean, he's a 34-year-old QB that was primarily known for scrambling, who isn't really known for his ability to throw the ball accurately. But at the very minimum, I think he'd be a positive locker room presence. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.